I'm so happy to be with you. Today on the podcast, we are talking about compassion, self-compassion, and compassion in general. This is vital on the healing journey. And if it wasn't modeled to you and you don't even know where to start with being compassionate towards yourself or towards the other people around you, then I'm really glad you're here, because I'm going to try to break it down. I'm going to try to simplify it for you. Compassion is definitely connected to living from your heart. It's going to take consideration of yourself and others. If you have a raging inner critic who likes to tell you what you're doing wrong, who likes to point out the flaws in yourself and in others. And side note, the inner critic, that voice that we hear, that's very critical, is often learned. So you may have had a parental figure, a caregiver, someone else very impactful in your life who looked at life through that extremely critical lens. And we then subconsciously pick it up, and it's a very learned response. It's a learned inner voice. So it doesn't mean that you are the critic. And we can separate that critical voice from us and say, oh, I hear you, but I don't need to accept and believe and agree with what you're saying right now. Because the inner critic will always want to point a finger at you and point a finger at others. And it's just that. It's very, very, very critical and judgy. So, the self-compassion, the compassionate voice is definitely going to have to challenge the inner critic. And just to give you a little bit of backstory, I used to have a raging inner critic. I was far from self-compassionate. I was very hard on myself. I did things that were actually physically grueling to prepare myself. I said, well, I need to be prepared for whatever might come ahead. So let me just do these things now to make sure I've got what it takes. I'm tough. And all of that might be okay, but what was fueling it was not compassion. And I looked at myself in the mirror and automatically was disgusted with myself. I saw all the things I disliked. It didn't matter what the scale said. I was never happy with how my body looked. At my lowest weight, I still thought I needed to lose weight, that I didn't look good. That's the thing with this. When we're critical of ourselves, when we see ourselves from a negative, judgy lens, it's really not going to matter how you show up. You're never going to be satisfied or happy. It may not even matter how other people show up. You may always be dissatisfied and unhappy with them as well. So it's deep work. It's heart-centered work, and it changes over time as we practice it. Yes, it is necessary to practice being compassionate towards yourself and others. And the more you learn how to be compassionate towards yourself, the byproduct will be you will be more compassionate towards others. It's how it works. The less critical we become of ourselves, the less critical we are of others, normally, typically speaking. And oftentimes what you hear someone saying, their projection on someone else, is based off of their own beliefs about themselves. It's very, I won't say easy because it can be complex, but sometimes by listening to what somebody says, you can learn a lot about how they actually view themselves. Some people are extremely insecure, and that insecurity is masked by them needing to make themselves look bigger. They try to impress other people. And honestly, it's because the inner child, that little kid that they once were, is wondering, do I measure up? How do I show up? Am I good enough? Do I have what it takes? What do other people think about me? Do they like me? And if we don't take care of that inner child, we will forever be the adult who has these questions, who shows up into a space where other people are, wondering these questions, wondering these things. And so then we show up in our insecurity. And like I said, sometimes it's so masked that people think they're not insecure, like they're so full of themselves. No, they actually doubt themselves. And they're looking for validation. They're looking for someone to say, wow, you're so good at that. And they don't even realize this is not a conscious thing. Most of the time it's subconscious. Most of the time we don't even recognize we have an inner critic. We may not realize that we're not compassionate towards ourselves or other people. So going on the journey, discovering, getting curious and discovering more about the way that you think, the way that you perceive life, the underlying, oftentimes limiting beliefs that you have, knowing these things will help you as you're looking to move deeper into living out of compassion. Compassion looks at someone or looks at itself with kindness, empathy, understanding, and genuine care. So somebody is crying or you're crying, and it's not suck it up, wipe those tears away, it's okay, it's all gonna be all right. It's considering, pausing, slowing things down, and considering, what is it that you're feeling in this moment? Or, oh, I see your tears. I feel your sadness. It's really disappointing right now what you're going through, isn't it? What you've experienced is really painful and it hurts deeply, doesn't it? I'm so sorry. It's being that, just sitting and being in that moment with yourself or with someone else. It's not needing to fix it. It will get better. That's the beauty of compassion. Compassion actually allows the process to move. It allows us to move out of whatever difficult place we are into a place that feels lighter and easier. So, consider for yourself, if you're not sure, then take the next few days, take the next few weeks to consider, what is your self-talk? As you go through your days, say you drop something, or you're running late, you make a mistake somewhere along the way. Maybe you just spill a cup of coffee or a cup of water and you knock it over by mistake. What is the next thought? What do you say to yourself, or do you think about yourself? And is it kind? Is it gentle? Or is it agitated and fierce? Does it have no patience and no tolerance? Or is it very understanding? Oh, it's just a cup of water. Oh, it's all right. We're going to be a little bit late. But here's where we're at. We're going to be late. Is it better to be agitated and hurry everyone out the door and feel that agitation in yourself and get out the door, but you get somewhere on time. And I'm not saying we should be late all the time. That's not the point of this. But we oftentimes say one thing's okay, and we don't always talk about, well, what will it mean? If the point is to be somewhere on time always, but the process sucks, is that a win? I actually think it's better to learn a way of leaving the house less stressed, more emotionally regulated, modeling something if there is little people around you that is different, hopefully, than what you grew up having modeled to you. And maybe you're going to be late sometimes. Or maybe you're going to learn a strategy like, hey, I just got to plan on being somewhere a half an hour before I'm supposed to be there. And then, because it takes me a half an hour longer, or I give space for a meltdown. I give space for the cup of coffee that might get spilled and the shirt that might need to get changed. But because we're giving space for that, we're allowing for that, we're actually not showing up late. So consider your self-talk. What's that inner dialogue? And then start to witness yourself. Notice, how are you showing up around other people? What are you saying? Especially the people closest to you. They hear the most from us usually. We feel the safest with them, so we share the most with them. And that means sometimes they see all the parts of us. The ones that other people never get to discover, because we might feel ashamed to show certain parts of ourselves to other people. We show the pretty ones, the ones we think look cleaned up and nice. How are you? Witness yourself. How are you interacting with other people? And even if it's not what you're saying, what are you thinking? Sometimes people don't say nasty things, but they think it. Are you compassionate towards the other people around you? Or are you super judgmental? Do you always see the flaws, the faults, the shortcomings? Do you hold someone to a super high standard? Because without compassion, it's going to be very easy to expect someone to be up here. When in reality, we should all be giving allowance for other people to make mistakes, and we should give allowance for ourselves to make mistakes. And I know I didn't grow up in an environment where there was allowance for mistakes. I get it. That may feel very unnatural to you, but we can always learn a new way of living. That is the beauty of the way our brains and our bodies were made. It is the best part of the healing journey, if you ask me. Maybe not. There's so many good parts about the healing journey, but being able to create new patterns, experience new growth, literally, like changing the structure of our brain through the way that our minds work. This is what neuroplasticity is. Being able to create a feeling of safety within our body, because we actually start to live out life differently than was modeled to us. When we are leaving the house, we learn that we don't have to leave hurried and agitated and irritated and scared. We can slow down the pace. We can breathe. And we can acknowledge, you know what? Things aren't going the way I wanted. I really wanted to already be out the door, but I am going to get where I need to go. It's okay if I'm a little bit late. And I want to remind that little girl that I once was, because I'm acknowledging my inner child in this process, because my inner child is showing up, remembering how it was getting out the door when she was little. I'm reminding my inner child that it's not like it once was. I'm okay. I'm okay with things taking longer. I'm okay with us being late. I'm here for you. Come here. Let's pause. I'm giving you a hug right now. And I visualize my inner child and I give her a warm embrace. And I just hold her in that moment of chaos. You're We take a breath and then we keep the process going to get out the door. I didn't experience that as a little girl, but I can offer that to my inner child now because I'm the wise, safe, loving adult who she resides with. And if inner child work is not familiar to you and you're like, what did you just do there? Bear with me. If you were to meet with me one-on-one, I would walk you through it more slowly. And if you do know what I'm talking about, then go ahead and be practicing that in the midst of your weeks. All right, looking forward to next week. And in between now and then, I would love to hear from you. Thanks for joining.